Bear in mind, this was late 2009, and I was only 10 at the time. Me, my mother, and stepdad lived in a small town in Sweden in a big house. If you were upstairs, you could still hear talking down in the kitchen, so it wasn't that isolated. One evening, when I was alone, because my mother and stepdad were going to my grandma's house, I asked them if I could stay home alone, because as a typical 10-year-old, I thought I was too grown up for a babysitter. After about an hour of nagging, she gave up and told me that I could stay home alone only if I were to keep the door locked and never open it to anyone. I was really excited. It was really exciting for me, and I stayed up really late watching cartoons. If I remember correctly, I was watching SpongeBob in the living room and eating ice cream. After about 5 minutes of eating ice cream, I was sure I heard a silent knock at the door. I didn't think much of it and continued watching the show. Another 5 minutes passed and I heard the knocking again, but this time it was much louder. I was frozen in fear and waited for the knocking to stop. After about 30 seconds. The knocking stopped, and the only sound was the TV. I called my mom, and she told me she'll be home in 20 minutes, and she told me to go to my room and lock my door. I went to my room without turning the TV off, so it was pretty loud. I sat in my room, and after 2 minutes I heard someone knocking, but banging really loud at the door. I was frozen in fear once again, and after about 3 minutes I could hear the door lock turn and somebody walk in. The person was inside my house, while I was home alone. I sat there in my room quiet and then turned the TV off. The footsteps were louder and it felt like it was coming towards my room. After a couple of seconds of the steps stopped, and I could hear someone knocking on my door, and an old man said, "Let me in. I have a surprise for you." I started screaming and crying for my mother, and the man started shaking the door handle. After 2 minutes, I heard a car outside, so I looked out my window, and it was my mom. I opened the window and screamed for help, and she said there was a man in my room. My stepdad quickly ran into the shed to get his axe and ran upstairs. The man quickly ran out the back, and my stepdad ran after him into the streets. My mom called the police, and my stepdad calmed me down when he got in. Okay, so my parents left to downtown Phoenix for a special meeting they had. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, so it was a really long ride, about 2 hours long. I was left home alone because my brother and his girlfriend went to go eat somewhere. I was a wuss, so I had all the lights turned off in the house and locked myself in my room. I had my German Shepherd with me, and I was on Skype with my friend and playing my Xbox One. 2 hours passed and it was already 10 p.m. I told my friend that I had to go, and that I'll talk to him tomorrow. I then shut off my Xbox and turned off my PC, and then I went to sleep with my German Shepherd next to me. 30 minutes later, my German Shepherd jumped out of the bed with its ears up, and I saw that he was shivering. I left my front door open, and at first, I thought it was my mom and dad, but they usually go through my garage door. After I assumed it was my brother and his girlfriend, I opened my door and saw that the kitchen front door was closed, and all I could see was pure darkness. My German Shepherd then ran into the kitchen and barked. I was scared, and my German Shepherd kept on barking. I called my friend on Skype and he picked up. I told him that someone broke into my house, and I don't know who. He said to calm down and call the cops. At that moment, I noticed my dog's barking had stopped. I told my friend to hang on, and I went slowly to the kitchen to check it out. My dog was just still there, but standing still and not moving. I heard my front door open, and at that moment I saw a man run out of the driveway. I quickly locked the door, turned on all the lights in the house, and ran to my PC to tell my friend that he left. But what he said will haunt me for life. Me. Oh my god, dude. This bitch just left. I swear I'm shaking right now. Him. Dude. Me. Yeah. Him. Who was that tall, dark dude that entered your room? He looked at me and then took your photo off your wall and left. Me. I have to go. Bye. So then I looked behind me and the picture was in fact gone. I called my brother. It took him 15 minutes. Later he did. I told him and his girlfriend all about what happened, and they promised to always stay with me whether my mom and dad were gone, and they won't tell my mom or dad. I'm never really home alone now, but my brother is always next to me whenever I am. So to that bitch who broke into my house and stole the photo for some reason, let's not meet. My sister and I were left home alone for the night because our parents were attending the graduation party of one of my brother's friends. Frankly, I was looking forward to a night of freedom, and I also happened to be closer with my sister than I was with anyone else. After they left, we watched a movie and played some games. I was only about 11 at the time, and she was 15, so my judgment varied from hers greatly. It was around 10 when we both started noticing a flashing of lights on the wall across from us. The shimmering was clearly coming from the door, which was mostly made up of a window that allowed all light to pass through. She was a bit unsettled because we lived in a remote area and seldom had no visitors. I had no sense of threat since I was too young and told her that I would check it out. When I went to peer out at the door, I saw a cluster, maybe 3 cars, making their way around the loop we had in front of our house. To be clear, this wasn't shared with other houses. In fact, we didn't even live in a neighborhood. It was a private drive. I figured they were probably lost and turning around. As the cars left, I explained the situation to my sister, and at first she was worried, but as some time passed, she seemed to shrug it off a bit. We finished watching TV, and were beginning to clean up around the house as we began to hear the knob of an entrance via the garage being fiddled with. It was a bit faint, and could have been an animal, which happened a lot. I didn't worry too much, but my sister continued to grow skeptical. The struggling with the knob went on for a minute or so, and was accompanied by some jingling and started to sound like something was being struck in the keyhole. It subsided and then was finished with a firm pound on the door as we heard it echo through the house. As someone who was still rather ignorant of danger, I became scared. My sister looked at me as we were in silence. We paused for about 5 seconds out of shock, and before we could make any other movements, we heard the door from our basement open and slam shut. Our basement staircase was across the house, and there was no way one single person could have covered that distance in that time. Using a separate staircase, we crept up the stairs with haste. Both of us ran in my sister's room, and we hid in her closet. Once in there, we got on the phone and told our parents and informed them. They notified the police and informed us to stay put. In her closet, we fumbled through the dark to grab items that could be used to defend ourselves with. She grabbed her snowboard, which had a sharp metal edge at the end, and all I could find was nothing better than a sturdy hanger. Both of us breathing heavily, we soon noticed something outdrove the sounds of our breaths. We heard footsteps resonate and increase in volume as they clearly came closer and closer to her room. Right as the steps come to a stop, we look at each other in terror because we knew that the person was now in the room. From under the closet, we saw a light pierce through the crack as the light switch came on. The person walked around the room and began moving stuff we could hear from behind the door. The rummaging stopped, and the footsteps returned. They were distinctly growing much louder, and 2 shadows formed beneath the crack of light underneath the door where his feet had prevented light from coming through. The noise I will never forget is the knob on the closet beginning to turn. It was met with a stiff halt as we had it locked. It was odd. No other doors in the house had locks but that one, and thank God it did. He jiggled with it a bit, but gave up after a few shakes. His footsteps grew more distant and soon faded. After about 10 minutes, my sister and I started to feel safe, as if we were no longer hearing any sounds. She explained to me that the distance from the closet to the window that allowed us up on the roof was only about 5 feet. We mustered up the courage and darted to the roof. Once up there, we felt much safer, as no one would ever check up there. We waited for about 15 minutes and the cops soon came. They arrived when we got back into the house. It was as if we were in a completely different home. Everything had been trashed and ransacked. The aftermath left us with stolen jewelry, a mess in our house, and an experience I'll never forget. We're just lucky that the intruder wasn't able to break down the 1-inch barrier of wood that was separating us from him, and I can't imagine what we would have done if he did.